In 1905, a boy named Frank Epperson left a mixture of water and soda powder on his porch with a stick inside of a glass. He didn't a circumflex euro t know it at the time, but this would create the first ice lollipop. However, it wasn't a circumflex euro t until 1923 that he actually put this idea into motion. He started a lemonade stand and started selling frozen treats that were called a circumflex euro oepsicles a circumflex euro at the time. Later it would be changed and patented by the Popsicle Corporation. By the year 1928, there were more than 60 million popsicle sales worldwide. Almost all of us have used super glue at some point in our lives. Well, if you have, you can thank American chemist Harry Coover for the discovery. The funny thing is that Coover was trying to create a clear plastic gun sight while using a chemical called a circumflex euro e-cyanoacrylate a circumflex euro. And after the experiment failed, he ended up with super glue. The idea was so popular that it resulted in $2 billion in sales. Needless to say, this was one of the most profitable a circumflex euro e-accidents a circumflex euro of all time. Henry Perkin was an English chemist that stumbled upon mavine, the first synthetic chemical dye, when he was only 18 years old. He did so by accident when he was trying to produce a medicine for curing malaria. Quickly after, he patented the process, and the year after he created a factory called Greenford Green. He began to sell his dye and it proved by be quite popular. By the end of the 1860 a circumflex euro s, mavine was everywhere and William was a multi-millionaire before the age of 36. He later sold his company to purchase a laboratory that would allow him to conduct further research into what provided him curiosity. Roy Plunkett was an American researcher who in 1938, accidentally left out a sample of Freon. By the morning, it had frozen and formed into a whitish wax. But instead of taking it and dumping it in the trash, he tested it and discovered that it contained some very unusual properties. By the year 1945, his idea was trademarked and within a few years his company had earned billions. He was the director of operations for Freon until he decided to retire in 1970. In 1907, a Belgian chemist Leo Baekeland invented the polymer bakelite. For those who don't a circumflex euro t know, this is used in kitchenware, radios, and telephones. He accidentally stumbled upon it when it was trying to create a replacement for shellac, a wood coating. Surprisingly, he came quite close. However, he heated the element in an iron pressure cooker and what came out was bakelite. In 1910, he formed his own company and drew in millions. Robert Cheeseborough was only 22 when he was trying to establish himself in the oil industry. One day, he was down inside of an oil well and he discovered something that was referred to by workers as rod wax. He, along with the others, noticed how this substance could heal burns and cuts. His entrepreneurial mind immediately took over and he took it home to experiment with. After some trial and error, he was able to extract petroleum jelly that would later become the first form of Vaseline. By the 1880s, Robert became rich as he began to sell his newfound invention. In 1952, a man named Joseph McVicker was working for a company called Coutal. This is when his sister-in-law approached him with a new idea. She had managed to steal some non-toxic cleaner from where she worked. He saw this as an immediate opportunity to make money. He went on to add some colorants to the dough as well as give it a pleasant scent. Soon after, he established his own company and made millions. Arthur Fry was an American scientist who on a Sunday in 1973 came up with the idea for a post-it while at church. He stumbled upon an adhesive that he could use for the process but still had no way of making it commercially available. His eureka moment came to him when he was continued to lose his page while reading a book. He thought that if he could coat it on paper, it would be sticky enough for a better bookmark. And because of this thought, he created a product that made him rich. Percy Spencer was an American engineer who was experimenting on something that could be used to detect enemy planes during World War II. During his experimentation, he accidentally melted a candy bar in his pocket from the microwaves being transmitted from the machine. He then tested it on popcorn then eggs. Eventually, he and other colleagues came to the realization that this could be used as a cooking product. He secured the patent for it in the 1940s and sales took off from there. Mestral was a Swiss engineer who was taking a morning walk in 1941 along the countryside. During his walk, he began to think how difficult it was to remove flowers of mountain thistle from clothing as well as his dog's coat. He began to experiment and under a microscope, began to study the material. He learned about thistle's adhesive properties and using his scientific background, quickly transformed this into a product. By the late 1950s, he began to sell Velcro and by the 1970s, sales took off.